Overall, what are your top 3 revenue and 3 expense priorities for the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 budget? So what are your top 3 revenue priorities?
We need to get businesses open. That's where revenue comes from. And businesses before casinos. I know that a lot more people work at the casinos, but I also think it's a higher risk of the problem coming back and having to shut down everything again.
Okay.
But we have to get businesses open, and soon, by the end of summer, we have to have the casinos back open because that's when people start coming here.
Right.
So that would probably be my biggest focus there.
Okay. What are the other 2 possible revenue priorities?
Tourism is important. Again, right now, it's at a standstill. That's why everything's shut down.
Yeah.
But I know, like up in Wendover, Nevada, it's a lot smaller than Mesquite, but they had an airstrip up there that they used during the Second World War. And they lengthened it, made it a little bit bigger, and the casino started bringing people in from other states all year long.
Okay.
And they were chartered flights coming in, but the guests were stuck in Wendover for 3 days, even in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
And they were always in the casino because it's even too hot there. It's 100 degrees, maybe not 115, but still plenty warm.
Right.
And it kept them whole. I'd like to see something like that happen to help tourism. And probably find a way to get businesses in here. Work with the groups who are doing that, because by spending money on those, that's going to bring money back into the city.
Okay. And then your top 3 expense priorities. What would you be most in favor of spending money on?
The youth of Mesquite would be number 1, and the schools and education, and not just while they're in high school and middle school and elementary school, but beyond. Give them a place to learn here. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that could be done with the tax from marijuana or help from industry coming in.
Okay.
Right now it's hard. Redevelopment's important because we need to get business in here.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's so important, I know they call it workforce housing, where I'm from, and I worked in real estate, it was affordable housing.
Yeah.
And they don't have any of that.
And we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So you just kind of hit on economic development. What are your thoughts on the future funding of Mesquite Regional Economic Development Organization? And should the current council reduce its funding, increase its funding, or dissolve the organization altogether?
Certainly not decrease the funding.
Okay.
In the short term, maybe, or certainly not do away with the funding, excuse me, I answered that right. Maybe in the short term, while a lot of companies are trying to get back on their feet, reduce it a little bit. I don't know that you're going to get a lot of takers in the next 6 months.
Right.
Now, there are some companies that have stayed really busy through this whole thing. If you're working with those types of companies, stay working with them. But the ones that probably are going to have to get their feet back under them before they move forward, maybe kind of put some of that on hold. I certainly don't know that in this climate I'd increase it, but I certainly would not do away with it.
Okay. Should more of the city's budget dollars be spent on income-producing and business-generating activities like new sports fields, amphitheaters, concert venues, things like that?
I think in the future, yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, because hopefully we're not going to have COVID forever, but I don't know, we might.
I mean, if they had a nice music or just a concert hall. And it could seat 2,000 people. It doesn't have to be big. But it's different than going to Casablanca and watching a show there. I think you have
Yeah.
somewhere that's specifically made for that,
Okay.
and you'd bring people in. People would go and watch, and you'd get to a point where you wouldn't just have cover bands. You'd actually have real performers.
Right.
And again, I know in Wendover, I've seen a lot of shows there. They're not headline names anymore,
Yeah.
but they have a concert hall up there. I've seen Kenny Loggins. We've seen the Bellamy Brothers. I mean, a lot of actual groups instead of just cover bands.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see something like that for sure.
Okay. If elected, what would be the one thing you would most like to work on first?
The kids, and giving them a reason to stay in Mesquite and start to work the demographic back to what it was originally, rather than just continue the demographic going with older people.
Okay.
At some point, people have to take care of those older people, and everyone's understaffed.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point where I'm worried about it.
I know. I am too, because I'm one of those older people. I'm retired. So that would be my first focus, and the thing I would champion the most is getting business in here, getting that affordable housing, and getting education for the people that are coming out of the schools, the kids, to be able to be qualified to take the positions in those new jobs.
Okay. There's a lot of talk about being business friendly. Do you consider Mesquite to be business friendly? And do you consider city staff to be appropriately organized? Do we have our staffing priorities in the right place?
I don't know, I can speak on city staff a lot,
Okay.
but from what I've witnessed, from what I have seen, I think they're in a pretty good space.
Okay.
As far as being business friendly, I look back to the 90s when you could go to St. George or Mesquite and they weren't a lot different. They were
Right.
both small.
Right.
Obviously something happened in St. George and they get every bit as hot, maybe within 5 degrees of Mesquite,
Yeah.
or Vegas, Henderson, Summerlin. Obviously something's stopping business from coming here. So I think that's something they could really work on.
Okay.